All right, everybody. Well, hey, we are back, and you are in treat for a buddy of mine that I've known for a few years now, who is doing amazing things. Originally met this guy, was emceeing just a little event in San Diego, not only the largest marketing convention in the country a few years back, but absolutely just a great message, an energy that the Energizer Bunny would rival and be jealous of. I'm talking about my buddy Sebastian Rusk joined us live from Miami, Florida out there this morning. If you don't know Sebastian, you definitely want to follow him. He's an author of the book Social Media Sucks. He's also the guy in charge of a couple different podcasts called Beyond the Story Podcast. And you can check it out at Beyond the Story Podcast. But he is a digital storyteller, author, speaker, launcher of podcasts at the Podcast Launch Lab. And he helps marketers and entrepreneurs get their message up by starting a podcast these days. So what is going on, Sebi? You doing all right, man? Doing all right, brother?
Scotty Carson, what's up, dude?
Doing great, man. Thanks for being here today.
I had some background music I was playing during the intro, but I don't want to mess up your mojo.
Yeah, no. Let's leave the music off. We don't want the Facebook police getting in and shutting down the live stream on the music. I've had that happen before there.
Royalty-free music only, Scotty.
There we go. There you go. Royalty-free music.
Got to keep it legit. Yeah, absolutely. So what's up? This is like my third year doing this with you.
This is the third year. We've done it. This is the third out of 4 years. We didn't do it last year because of time constraints and schedule and travel thing. But yeah, man, you're the esteemed alumnus of the group here.
Remember the first year I called in from the beach? You're like, dude, yeah. I asked, I go, hey, I'm going to be on the beach watching the sunrise. Is that cool? You're like, yeah, totally cool.
So it was totally cool, man. You're sitting there walking by the lifeguard stands, getting the sunrise, the beach, the waves. There's that calming effect. I think you weren't the first. That was 2 years ago. You weren't the first one on, but it was sunrise in Miami, which is beautiful there for you.
Right. I remember the guy in the thong ran behind me. I was like, whoa, hold on a second.
Fluorescent pink, if I remember. Fuchsia pink.
Welcome to Miami.
That's right, baby. So let's talk about some of the things. As you are a social media expert, you're doing a variety of things, not only just with the Podcast Launch Lab, helping other entrepreneurs and tell their stories, but you're doing such a great job using your social media to storytell, especially with the restaurants that you're working with. You've done some great videos as well too, with the foodie TV and a variety of things over the last couple of years. Where
Foodie
are you
coming back?
Say what?
I said Foodie Buzz is coming back if all the restaurants ever open again.
There, exactly. So let's talk about it. When you think about your social media, what's kind of maybe the two big nuggets, the two big staples, the bolts that kind of hold your stuff together that you do on a regular basis that you love?
I've been in this game since the beginning, 2004, and then I turned into a business in 2010. In fact, I hosted the first ever social media day with Mashable here in Miami on June 30th, 2010. I've just pulled that video up. And over the course of the past 10 years, it's been a wild ride to figure out really where my place was in the social media world. As everyone and their brother is either a personal trainer, a realtor, or a social media expert these days. And I have no problem with those professions. I just choose to not associate myself with those. I don't want to be in such a general area. I want to do work that matters. And about 4 years ago, when I relaunched my podcast for the third time and launched the Podcast Launch Lab and just was continually seen as the go-to guy for podcasting, I thought, wait a second. So my dad spent 30 years in radio. I'm going to end up in podcasting because I've been a podcaster since I started in 2010. And I decided to really go all in and put the blinders on and say, my place in the social media world is podcasting. Now, you can't just survive on just having your podcast. You've got to be able to get the word out about your podcast. So as of I'd say for the past 18 months, I've been laser focused on spending all of my time on LinkedIn and also on YouTube. In fact, I just had 1,000 subscribers this week while at the beach, and was really excited about that. I've been working really hard. YouTube is not easy. Anybody can go live on Facebook and talk about what you're doing, but YouTube takes talent, it takes grit, it takes the ability to stay committed to it, and the opportunity to know that you're creating content, not just to be a resource, but to also entertain people too. So when you're trying to entertain people and also inform them, that's kind of the winning formula, but it's really, really difficult to be able to figure out. And you got to think there's 15 million creators on YouTube. there's only 1 million podcasts. I know that sounds a little crazy, but we're still in its infancy with podcasting being, it was born in 2002, 2003, became popular in 2008, kind of got quiet a little bit. Now everybody and their brother wants to start a podcast. Thank God. The podcastlaunchlab.com is thriving during these uncertain times. But I'd say spreading the word on YouTube as a lead gen tool, and also to become, continue to become the go-to source for starting a podcast within the social media space, is on YouTube. And then LinkedIn is just so untapped right now. Still, over the past 24 months, they've had a tremendous shift in the way that they allow content to be shared and created, and the connections that are happening. You got to realize that the individuals that are on that website, you're not on LinkedIn to find a job any longer. Yeah, you can, but you're there to share content. You're there to build relationships with other people that literally want to network. I say that LinkedIn is a perpetual, never-ending networking event, and it really, really is. I had some incredible opportunities open up out of there from interviewing. One strategy that's worked really well is interviewing LinkedIn influencers. There's a group of 10 or 15 of these individuals that are just crushing it on LinkedIn. And my strategy was, let me get them on the show. Let me build a relationship with them once I got them on the show, and let me ask them when they're going to start their podcast. That's worked really well. So long-winded answer, podcasting, YouTube, and LinkedIn.
I love it. I would agree to that completely, because those are all three big facets of it's helped us really get our message out there. Let's go to YouTube a little bit here, because you were using YouTube videos, but what has been the biggest impact here? Because I know that you just spent some time really kind of hiring a coach to help you out with that a little bit too, to help there. What's been the biggest difference, staple, or one or two things that you added that boost your engagement or boost your subscribers on YouTube?
Yeah, I mean, big shout out to Owen Video and everything he's got going on there with his YouTube intensive. Known the kid for over 15 years. He sold windows, and I had a call center in Orange County when we first met. So there was none of this social media stuff. And he told me 8 or 9 years ago, I'm going to become the go-to source for YouTube. I'm going to become Owen Video. And I'm like, you go get him, Tiger. And he sure did. And he's turned it into an incredible business. And I joined his intensive back in February because he continued to tell me, listen, I love you, bro, but you're doing it wrong. And I'm like, what do you mean I'm doing it wrong? I'm like, go and look for all the keywords that are popular, and then I'm creating videos around them. What do you mean I'm doing them wrong? Like, this is the way it's done. He's like, listen, YouTube SEO is dead. The how-to keyword search, everybody's doing that. Plus, if you do that, all you are is a resource channel. What does that mean? Well, that means people just come and use you and abuse you when they need you. That's it. Meaning they come to your channel, they find the information, and when they click away, they never come back. They don't care about what you're doing and uploading new information. They don't care about being part of your community. And that's where it all really started to shift. I was like, I don't want that. I don't want to be a resource channel. I'm not a library. Actually, I want to be a resource channel, and I also want to be in an entertainment channel. Like, there's a hybrid there. So he taught me that each channel should have between 2 and 4 different silos. We can call those playlists, right? So I've got podcasting 101. We've got podcasting marketing. We've got podcast intros. And my most recent series with my publisher I'm working on my second book with is Podcast to Book, where I'm documenting the series of writing my second book, Podcasts Suck If You Don't Have One. And I'm putting together a video series on that. What I'm trying to do is understand where else my audience is. And that's really what Owen teaches, is how do you create content that is, number one, informative, educating, motivating, entertaining, and how do you, YouTube's about pattern disruption, right? So a lot of the editing techniques and things that take place, people aren't there just to watch a talking head tell them what to do. They want to be entertained to a certain extent. So yeah, I've really learned to widen my net, if you will, as far as who else is searching for help pertaining to podcasting. I mean, my ideal client is a marketer, entrepreneur, author, speakers, coaches, people of authority. What other stuff are they watching on YouTube that I can be able to tap into? So, it's a constant evolution of figuring out what the next thing to talk about is that stays within your circle, but also allows you to cast your net a little further, if that makes sense at all.
That totally makes sense there. And I love what you said about how you call yourself a digital storyteller, because I think so many experts and entrepreneurs are good at teaching what they know, but not telling the stories. And I think people connect more in the storytelling than just regurgitating or remembering of facts. People connect on the story side. And yeah. I know you do a good job of that. What are some of the things that you're teaching or training the new podcasters that you're launching to kind of embrace that storytelling aspect of things? What are some of the things that you're doing there?
What's your why? Like, what do you want to start a podcast for? Well, I just think people tell me I'm funny. Well, they lied to you. Well, I think maybe it'd be cool to sit around with my girlfriends and drink some wine and record our conversations. It's a terrible idea. Well, I've got a story to tell. I've had a rough past and I overcame it and I was able to blow right through it. And I'm on the other side of it now. And I want to tell my story because it's going to help people. It's going to heal people. And it's going to contribute to this world and leave this place a better place than I found it. Now we're on to something. Listen, you don't have to have a rough past or a bad, everyone's had some sort of challenge and journey along the way. Being able to tap into that story and tell it and tell a story of, listen, Brene Brown talks a lot about sharing wounds, not scars, not wounds, right? So it's not talking about starting a podcast about where you're currently at right now, going through a divorce. It's getting through that divorce and being on the other side of it and saying, well, I went through it and I want to tell the story of how I was able to go through it. And then I'm confident it's going to impact other people's lives because, people aren't going to stop divorcing. It's just not going to happen, especially during the Rona.
The Rona. My Corona.
Yeah, right. So figuring out your why, that's the biggest thing we focus on here. I won't even have a conversation longer than 5 minutes if someone doesn't have their why ironed out and extremely clear. I'd send them back to the drawing board. Call me back when you've got it, because once you've got the why does a couple things. Number one, well, you've tapped into why you're starting a podcast, and you've got a very legitimate reason to do so, right? You've got a basis to be able to build the platform on. Number one. Number two, more times than none, when we figure out our why, it motivates us to take action, and it motivates us to stick to the commitment that we've made, which is, I figured out what my why is. I need to tell my story. I'm going to do it through the medium of podcasts and being able to stay consistent with that. And our students are successful because I'm constantly holding them accountable for being able to do so. So it was a lot of trial and error figuring out the podcast launch lab. It used to be a 6-month program and there was no sense of urgency. And then I cut it in half down to 90 days. I took a lot from what I learned in the YouTube intensive and applied it to the podcast launch lab. And it's worked great. And I had no idea what I had signed up for when I launched the podcast launch lab, but the people that walk through my door to say, hey, I want to start a podcast have had some real life that they've dealt with and they've been able to push through. So I feel responsible to be able to provide them with the resources available to be able to do that. And one of those is making sure that they're very, very clear with their why. This isn't just some service that you buy and move on with your day once you've launched your podcast. This is an investment into your life that I help you extract and figure out based on your why and your story.
Yeah, it definitely is. That's one of the things that you and I've shared and talked about in the past is the consistency of showing up and being there. Once you've built, or as you're building your audience to stay there, there's 1 million plus podcasts out there, but we all know that number is skewed because we're only maybe a third are actually still producing content on a regular basis. They've not gone through the pod fade of aspect of filming the first 10 and falling off. And I know that you've done and helped launch a podcast for a variety of entrepreneurs and businesses, title companies, restaurants, and others everywhere in between, because they do have that why. They do have that story. So what would you say has been the biggest contributing factor to keeping people consistent on sharing their journey, sharing their why, Sebastian?
Just keeping it real with them and saying, do you really want to do this? Because we're not going to do this for you to get into 5 episodes and then go, well, life just showed up. I'm not here to embrace your BS excuses on why you did not do something. I'm here so that we both win. The only way that we both win is if you launch a podcast and you continue to record podcast episodes and build your show. That's the only way that we win. Now, from a monetary aspect, from an actual, this is what we signed up for aspect. So I come from a very transparent space, making sure that I hold people accountable, that if you're going to sign up for something and say you're going to do it, do it. You're screwing around with the cameras over there, Scotty.
Yeah, sorry. I didn't mean to stop your video there.
You're all good. You're all good. We're back.
So staying consistent. Now, besides YouTube, what would you say has been another huge impact in helping you get the word out and what you're doing when it comes to social media? A platform that you really love doing tactics on there as well?
Well, I don't know if I love Facebook, but it's really become part of life. More important, it's become, the ads platform's phenomenal if you know how to use it. Works great. But the ability to connect with people in the correct way and be able to share life is still pretty cool. 15 years later, here we are. I think it's really shifted to a backyard barbecue vibe versus let's get shit done vibe, which I think is a little different. LinkedIn, that's where LinkedIn comes into play. People aren't there just to share the weekend and shoot the breeze, So I think Facebook and Instagram still, hold their weight to where it's at. But when we're talking about making serious commitment about where exactly I want to spend my time, YouTube is the most fulfilling. There's nothing better than uploading another video and seeing people, barrage your comments and insult you and berate you and make you feel like a, third world citizen. It's awesome. But you know what?
It's good when you've got friends, right?
Yeah, exactly. You know what? Listen to me. If they're not talking about you, you're doing something wrong. Number one. Number two, if you're worried, and this is for social media in general, if you're worried about Fatty Pants 99 at AOL running their mouth about you and your content with no profile picture, by the way, on their comment on there, then, just hang it up. Go, run a billboard, buy a bus bench. Something like that. And, maybe social media is not for you on here. You've got to rise above that. I went through that this weekend. I hit 1,000 subscribers and was going through comments, which, is another very important part of the algorithm. So you respond back to people. Plus, you're a YouTube channel. You need to be able to be, a resource for people as part of building that community on here. So responding back to people. So, it was very entertaining to go through those comments, to say the least. And, I kind of, shook it off a little bit. Here we are. And I just, quick little block spam report, and you move on with your day. Take that, Genie Boy 33.
Like the first one, Fanny Boy 99.
Yeah, Fatty Pants 99. Yeah, right. If you're worried about what Fatty Pants 99, I got that from my buddy Gary V. If you're worried about that, it goes back to giving, it goes back to caring what people think. And I think a lot of people, don't tell their story and don't open up based on, I have a show we're launching right now with a student of mine. A huge LinkedIn influencer, Shay Rowbottom, and has had an incredibly rough past in childhood, and walked into my studio and said, Sebastian, it's time to tell this story. Now that I've healed, I can help other people, and I've got to tell this story. And I'm like, it was like a completely different vibe and conversation, because she's really high energy and crazy like me. And so when that happened, I thought I thought, wait a second, it takes courage to go and do that, because she continued to say, I am scared out of my mind on what's on the other side of this. I know the feedback that I get by just having 300,000 followers on LinkedIn, she said, let alone going to tell my story of what really took place. So, but I'm ready. There's never been a better time than now. But I think a lot of us, our fear of looking bad, which is a lie, by the way. No one cares. You know why? Because they're worried about themselves. No one cares. Well, Jesus does.
Well, you say that, and I completely agree with it. Nobody cares. People have a 10-minute attention span.
Yep.
They're just going to scroll through and say, okay, great, awesome. But I want to bring back to our boy Gary V, because we're both friends with Gary. And the thing about Gary, I think that intimidates, is just the mass amount of quantity he puts out. It can be intimidating for somebody who's kind of getting their start there. So let's roll it back a little bit to what would you say your success formula, your success recipe for somebody who's launching a business, pivoting, starting a podcast. What would you kind of say is okay? Is that here's what you got to do at least to start taking action and really seeing an impact?
Well, you got to figure out, what are you going to talk about? Right. What are you going to talk about? Is your business, is your brand? What's the why behind all of that? Of even, where's the story? We're looking for that angle. What's the angle of the story that you can actually go and tell that's going to provide value? If you're looking at what bridge can I build to take people from, oh, I didn't know that, to, wow, this is really valuable content. I want to consume it. So you've got to figure out how to bridge that gap in between where you are and where your community is, or your future community is that you're going to build. You've got to provide that value on whether it's a podcast, whether it's a video, whether it's a social media post. And I think consistency and procrastination are two of the things that I hammer down at the Podcast Launch Lab. Is like, listen, if you're going to put this off, it's not going to work. If you're not going to be consistent, it's just not going to work. So let's just keep it real. If you're putting this off, where else does this show up in your life? Where else do you procrastinate? Probably everywhere. You know why? Because how we do one thing is how we do everything. So I try to keep it real with the people that we work with, and with the content that I'm creating on here. I mean, this stuff is I believe it's important, because just like writing a book's one of the best things you can do for humanity, I believe that starting a podcast is too, because it's leaving a legacy. My daughter's going to be able to look back and tell her kids, hey, listen, this was your crazy, or this is your crazy grandfather. So, you know what I mean?
I got some wood there, brother.
Yeah, right. Holy cow. Got a little warm in here. Saw that white light flash. Yeah.
When you say keeping it real, I think of the Chappelle Show. Keeping it real, that's an important aspect of things, is being yourself, being consistent, and hanging out where your audience is hanging out at. If your audience isn't hanging out in TikTok, you should be on their TikTok, and when you should be over on LinkedIn or
I don't know
Instagram.
what the craze is with TikTok. I can't seem to. I opened it up yesterday. My brain hurt. I'm like, I quit.
Come on, man. If you go out and run to the beach in Miami in your thong or your tutu, you're going to get some followers on TikTok. It'd be great advertising for launch.
They're 14 years old and they don't want to start a podcast, nor do they have $3,000 to pay me to do it. You know what I mean? It's just, know your audience. It's a great example, But on LinkedIn, if I'm creating content about how to start a podcast and I'm constantly talking about podcasting, and you're involved in the conversation, people are checking you out. You know that they've checked you out. You're engaging in conversation. Hey, Scott, I saw you checked out my profile. It's great to be connected with you. Do you have a podcast, Scott? So there's a great opportunity to be able to drum up, opportunity with content. But it's a crawl, walk, run. It's still the cocktail party mentality. You don't just walk into a cocktail party and go, "What's up? I'm here."
Wait a second. You did that at Podfest, though. No,
but listen, my next line was "I do," but that doesn't make it the norm for most people. Most people walk into a cocktail party and scope it out, or they're with someone, or they try to identify who they know, and you go get yourself a cocktail and you start having some conversations. And by the end of the night, you've gotten a couple cards, you've shaken a couple hands, kissed a couple babies, and you know exactly who you're going to follow up with, right? I think that's exactly how the world of social media still operates. The amount of LinkedIn spam that happens on a daily basis makes me want to punch a baby. I mean, it is not a real baby, like a fake one. Anyway, is unbelievable. It really, really is. And I just saw a post the other day, yesterday. Shanae, I forget what her last name is a LinkedIn influencer. She's like, let's go over the rules one more time, guys. LinkedIn's not a dating website. Number 2, stop asking me questions about my life. Like, this is a business website. So I think a lot of it's getting regulated with, through the community by default, and platforms help out with that too. Politics haven't helped with social media at all. I mean, some would agree that it has, but it's really muddied the water. Somebody called Twitter a hate feed the other day, or what was it? Yeah, something like that. Yeah. If you want to, it's almost like turning on the news. I almost named a network. Opening up Twitter is almost like just turning on the news, just any news that tickles your fancy. Yeah.
Well, but here's a good point. Do you think it's good to avoid those kind of hot button aspects on social media that can divide and conquer, and being such a hot market with politics these days, whether you go to the left or the right or in the middle, just trying to stay in your lane and avoid a lot of that mud that's flying overhead?
Yeah, so here's the deal.
Here we go. Hang on, everybody. Hang on. It's good when he says, okay, here's the deal. All right.
In the past 90 days, there have been more pandemic experts, civil rights, revolutionist leaders, and what's the third one? What are we doing? Corona. Political. That's right. Political advisors / experts develop. They come out of nowhere. They come out, and all of a sudden you see this purple post on Facebook with text on it that simply says, I can't believe I have to wear a mask, or I can't believe he or she or they aren't wearing a mask, or it's not about this lives matters. It's not about that. It's about this, and you should be doing this, and you should be doing that. Yet we've never heard any type of dialogue from that individual pertaining to that ever. And I'd like to say, when I speak to that, I like to say the conversations that we're having offline are far more valuable than posting something online about having a conversation with someone that is different from you, which, by the way, is everyone. But before all this happened, nobody was talking about any of this at all. So I think it's more important that our actions show up and align with the things that we're talking about pertaining to reform and civil justice. All these things are so ridiculously vital, and they are changing in the midst, in front of our own eyes. for the better on here. And it's a long road to go, but I don't think that any new advocates jumping on board, other than knowing in your heart this is what you support and this is what you believe in, and being able to unify our country and bring it together as much as possible. I heard a great interview with Joe Rogan and gosh, who's the Daily Show's old host? Jon Stewart. Jon Stewart and Joe Rogan literally sat for an hour and a half and said, this is what we need to do to sort of solve the world's problems. And it was really cool. I like to see the different perspectives that, you know, in the midst of all this chaos, there is some hope for what's to come. But no, I don't believe that unless, there's just not, you put an entire black screen up on Instagram to be a Blackout Tuesday on here, and then there's a problem with that. And then, if you post about all life matters, there's a problem with that. Do Black Lives Matter? It's a problem. There's never an even pendulum. And it goes right into the same thing with politics. If you voted for Trump, you're a racist. If you like Biden, you don't care about America. That's the reality, right? You're either a Trump-tard or a Dem-tard, right? One of the two on there. There's no happy medium on either side. So I say, pertaining to publicly speaking on the platform about it, not stay away from it, but have conversations offline with your friends and people that you care about, in a productive manner that moves towards, can this be part of the solution, or we just continue to run in circles, based on where it's at. But yeah, it's, listen, November's going to be crazy. It really, really is. And I don't think that us contributing and posting about an upcoming election, about how horrible Trump is or how great Biden is, or why'd Bernie drop out, or is The Rock going to run? That'd be cool. I'd vote for The Rock. I will say that, a political statement. I'd vote for The Rock 100%. But yeah, you want to watch 50-50. With politics or social justice or a pandemic. It's 50-50. 50% of the people you're really going to piss off. 50% of the people are going to agree with you. And it just feels so good when that 50% agrees with you. But then you got the hate on the other 50% that completely disagrees with what you're doing and thinks you're an absolute pig.
Yeah, I agree to that 100%. That's why the old bartender in me says avoid politics and religion are two of the biggest things to avoid in a bar. And then I think also online there, because it is the world's largest cocktail party. And if you're going to market it correctly, I love that analogy you give, treat it as a cocktail party. But engage in those conversations on a one-off basis. I think it's so much more valuable being able to communicate. These days, so many people rely on texts and just tweets and things as that one-way conversation versus really engaging and listening to everybody else's stuff out there too, there for you. So Sebastian, what's the best way for people to get a hold of you, to connect online, to follow what you're doing? If you're launching podcasts from people all across the country, aren't you? Not just there in Miami, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I 100% am. Yeah, we worldwide. So we operate on Zoom. I coach you one-on-one. You work with me, not somebody on my team. And we've got a 90-day program to take you from idea to iTunes in 90 days or less with your first 5 episodes in an actual produced show. So your intro, your outro, planning your first 5 episodes, doing all the editing for that, and then being able to work with me one-on-one. And then after you're done with the 90 days, you get to join my ongoing monthly mastermind community that we do live trainings, and there's other podcasters within the group. And, I'm on a mission to help 100 people start a podcast this year. So, and we're well on our way. And I'd like to think that we're going to beat that number. So this is a movement that I've created here. And I believe that, there's power in community, as you know. So, the Podcast Launch Lab is alive and well. More information at thepodcastlaunchlab.com. You can find me on LinkedIn, Sebastian Rusk, S-E-B-R-U-S-K, or excuse me, R-U-S-K is how you spell the last name. Sebastian's probably pretty evident and clear. I'm Seb Rusk on Instagram, and find me on the Facebooks too. But I'd love to have a conversation. If you've been thinking about starting a podcast, I can definitely push you over the edge and get you started. 100%. Or I can tell you that your idea sucks and hang up on you. I'm just kidding. I wouldn't hang up.
That's right. Podcasts suck unless you got one there, baby.
Yes, exactly. If you don't have one, the book drops at the end of August. So it'll be wherever books are sold. I've been diligently channeling my inner Ernest Hemingway at the beach and type in and writing all weekend. So I'm looking forward to that.
Well, good. When it comes out, you let me know. We'll help you with launching it and help promoting it out there as well for you. All right, brother?
Yeah, you're awesome, dude. I appreciate you, Scotty.
Hey, nothing but love for you, Seb. Be safe out there. You guys are in Florida, are going through a spike like we are here in Texas. So be safe and stay out of trouble. All right. Yeah.
Don't forget your mask.
Yes.
I went there again. I just went there again, didn't I? Masks are staying.
I was watching. I don't know if you're. I watched Bill Maher on Sunday nights, and he was showing video of the Palm, or it was John Oliver showing people at the Palm Beach County. I don't know, monthly meeting, people complaining that they require that people wear a mask in public. And it's just funny as hell on where people will go with stuff like that. So
100%. Yeah, I was in Cocoa Beach this weekend. They did not require a mask. I'm walking around everywhere with the mask, and I'm not seeing masks anywhere. Like I was that guy at the pool in a Speedo with my mask on. With goggles and a snorkel. How do you use a snorkel with masks? That's the whole, you know what I mean?
Did you have your floaties? Did you have your floaties on your arms?
I did. I can't. I'm like, look at this maniac. Security. Like, this is the best Western, folks. There ain't no security. Yeah.
All right, brother. Well, hey, be safe. We'll talk to you later, Seb.
Thanks, Scotty. Appreciate you, man.
Yep,
Bye, guys.
yep.